Emily, I've looked over your lesson plans and here's some feedback for you. So just kind of overall comments. This is very well aligned. It's very clear that the kids are moving through um, their idea generation and their writing and their revision. And I particularly liked your quotation connection worksheet that you gave them. I think that's really well done. It helps them clearly see how to write those warrants, which can be especially tricky. The thing that concerned me about just the set of lesson plans in general was that you moved really fast through these. And I felt like the speed with which you moved through them came at the sacrifice of some direct instruction. Your modeling was well done, but the direct instruction was really thin, especially when you're looking at a bunch of seventh grade writers and writing counter arguments, things like that. Let me show you some particular places where I would like you to slow down and expand. Okay. So here in your learning plan, so they've already been looking at rhetorical strategies through Call of the Wild. They've got that, okay? Um, I really liked this piece, especially. So, the last essay they wrote was compare contrast. And so you're pulling up their last writing experience from their memory and you're doing a direct comparison to the changes they're going to be making. So that's beautifully done. I like that a lot. All right. Um, these right here. Okay, so your persuasion handout. Hold on one sec. Your persuasion handout was well done. I liked that. Here's the piece that I'm looking for here. Okay, right in here. So when you had them read the paragraph, turn classrooms into gyms. All right, you had them read it. Um, who's for it? Who's against it? So join the argument here with nothing more than opinion. And then you have them reread it and underline words or phrases that popped out to them as being persuasive. Tell someone else which words they underlined. Stand up if they found a word. And then why did they find that word persuasive? Okay, this one caught me a little bit here. It's like it's a good lead in, but it wasn't followed up by any direct instruction because you then simply said, who thinks the author was effective at using rhetorical strategies? Which, let's think about a seventh grader here. They're going to go, yeah, I want my classroom turned into a gym. Yes, this was persuasive. But the problem is what they're really doing is raising their hand based on opinion, not raising their hand based on use of rhetorical strategies. Because you just had them underline a word and throw out an opinion, and then there wasn't really any criteria for it. Right? You wanted them to connect whether it was, use of ethos, pathos, logos, but those aren't always readily apparent in a piece of writing, right? Like, so an author uses an outside credible source. Fine, that's logos. Is that persuasive? Well, who the heck knows? Because was the author credible? Was it the best use of that inside of a topic? How did the author explain that quote? Was that explanation convincing and persuasive? There's so much more than just ethos, pathos, and logos. And there's so much more to saying, was an author persuasive in his or her use of rhetorical strategies? This really just seemed to, like I said, it was just the speed. Like, you just rocketed through this. you know, um, read through it as a class, 2 minutes to read through it here, 30 seconds to discuss, stand up if it was, if you found something persuasive. There you go. It was persuasive, right? Excellent. On to counter arguments. Without any real deep level analysis, because the big question here is, will your students be able to replicate that author's use of an effective rhetorical strategy? And replication is interesting because it assumes that I have A, identified it, and B, analyzed it enough to where I can own that information and, and then synthesize my writing with not that author's words, but that author's strategy. that takes, I think, a little more deep explanation. Now you have them moving on to, by the way, I love this idea of reverse outlining a persuasive essay so that they can understand that there's a counter argument required in there. But so they read this essay and then fill out the outline, and they're to recognize that there's a counter argument. So students who recognized it and can answer your questions are well positioned. Students who didn't recognize it and don't answer your questions, the ones that just sit back and let other kids answer, well, I'm not real sure what they learned from this, because again, you rocket through this really quick and then you just walk away from it. Good, we have to have opposing arguments, and there you go for homework, decide what side you want to take, without that idea that we've been talking about in class, where you want kids to play with ideas and words and own them. It's just really fast. Same kind of a thing, you hand out your persuasion rubric and you say, if you've got any questions, let me know next time. And in your lesson plan 2, I'll hop over there now, you didn't cover the rubric with them at all. So I don't know whether they've read it or not. If they ask me questions, I suppose I would know if they read it, but I don't know. If they didn't ask me any questions, I assume they read it and that there's no questions. That's kind of it. Again, it's just moving too fast. Slow down and take your time, and you don't have to go line by line through the rubric with the students, but find some particular pieces in there, for instance the counter argument, that where you have anticipated the kids stumbling. One of the things I'm looking for in your lesson plans is that you understand who your students are, how they think, what they need, that you've looked at something, a persuasive essay, for instance, from a 360-degree view, and you said, okay, here's where I think my students are going to struggle. Here's where I think they'll excel. Here's where I think they might have questions and need more explanation. The way this is written, it's like you would be teaching it to, I don't know, to undergrads or something, that it's like, here's the rubric. Let me know if you have any questions. And if you don't, that's your bad, not mine. Whereas with 7th graders, we've got to look at it and say, 1, are they even going to read at home? 2, are they going to understand what they read? 3, are they going to understand it well enough to synthesize it, replicate that in their own way? And I'm not sure that that's the case. So you start in with your lesson plan 2. You've got their essay on the top of the board, journal prompt, which side are you going to take? And then you say, I'm going to show you what I'm asking you all to complete in class today. And then you move through it. And then you give all of your instruction after your model. That's a little tricky. Consider if right here you said, so guys, today I'm going to be asking you to, to create a rough draft thesis sentence, and then articulate your 3 main points, and then find some textual evidence for all of those main points. So let me demonstrate those steps for you right now with a different prompt, right? Because I don't want to, steal any of your really good ideas, and then walk them through that. Instead of, I'm going to show you what I'm asking you all to complete in class today. Because the kids, you know what I thought of while I was reading this? I thought of Courtney's husband. I know this is weird. Hang in there with me. So he is attempting to repair Courtney's car on his own, and this is like advanced repairs. I don't even understand all of the words that he uses, right? He's replacing water pumps and timing belts and all this kind of stuff. And do you know what he's been doing? YouTube, right? So he watches this YouTube video and he goes out there and he works on it. And then he comes back in and he's like, I don't get it. What did I do wrong? What didn't that work? And he takes the iPad out there and you can see him like watching it and pausing it and backing up a little bit and watching again. Okay, and then he goes to another one and watches it. And then he pauses and he backs up and he watches it again, right? To learn through nothing else but seeing someone else do with no explanation is very difficult. For your kids who already, have that belief that I'm a good writer and I know how to do this, they'll be able to watch you and write their essay. But for a majority of your kids who don't feel that way, this is very difficult for them to just watch you do it and then ta-da, they can do it. So I want you to make this into a think aloud. You write this thesis statement, and I don't know where these ideas are coming from. You write these main points, and then you have a counter argument, and I don't know why. Is that a good counter argument? Should mine look like that? Is that a good structure that I should have an although, dependent comma independent clause? Or is that just how Miss Lester writes? Right? Like, you have not made this a think aloud. You simply stood in front of the students and wrote, and then you didn't break it down for them. And our goal is to teach our students these skills so well that they can replicate them on their own. So see how you just barreled through that again, and then put them into, all right, do this, this, and this. And they're like, oh, those were the steps that you did up there? Which... It's frustrating, right? You would think they could do that, right? And then you give them 15 minutes to start on your quotation connection sheet. You do a callback, right? So they tell you the main words that they're supposed to be doing, but still. And then this bullet right in here, be real careful that the tone sounds very threatening there. That you can talk quietly, but if I see you getting off task, I'll change this to silent work. I'm giving you this opportunity to work in class. If you stay on task, you won't have any homework. As soon as the adult in the room goes to that lecturing words and tones, it can really do something to your classroom. It can really shut them down. I'm sure you felt a little bit of that, when I talked in class on Thursday morning, and I was so disappointed in how you guys acted. I mean, it was not how I normally talk and not how I normally act. And it did something to you. It did something to the feel of the classroom on Thursday. So imagine that then with a bunch of 12-year-old kids, and are they going to feel like, oh my God, you sound like my mom nagging me, and how many of them are just going to go the opposite direction and just be naughty because that's their instinct, So watch out for things like that, okay? So your third lesson plan, pretty similar feedback on there, right? I really don't feel like you took the time to go over some of those pieces in depth with the kids, as far as being able to decide. Sorry, I'm trying to find the revision worksheet. Where did I put that? Here, it's right here. As far as like what they should be doing and how they should be doing it, you just tell them to do it, not whether it's good, right? This is a really interesting one right here. Is the progression of ideas within the letter arranged in a clear way? I don't think a 7th grader is going to be able to analyze someone else's writing and answer that question effectively without some scaffolding, without some criteria, things like that. You also have mixed up your revision and your editing in one class period, and you've put it into one lesson plan, which means that they feel like they have equal weight. And you gave them all the same time frame. So it should take me 10 minutes to do this really yep, there's a conclusion. Yep, I checked the font and the spacing. It should take me 10 minutes to think about progression of ideas, arrangement, counter-argument, and then quality of evidence. And it should also take me 10 minutes to check spelling, grammar, and punctuation. So you have indicated to the kids that all of these have an equal weight, and that's not the kind of message we want to send through. Revision in and of itself is a lesson plan. We want our students to be the kind of well thought through students who think about the progression of ideas, who understand what that term even means, and then who understand if it's well done, more so than just like, I have a transition word, doesn't that work? Right, but why is this paragraph here? Is that the best choice? Or is your second argument really should be your first argument? And let's think about that and understand why. And let's look at someone else's writing and understand that. Again, I think it's just a product of you kind of speeding through this a little too quickly. So I hope that's some helpful feedback for you, and I hope that you can see some of those pieces that I'm looking at in here. Okay? Thanks, Emily.